Hi there and welcome to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Lawrence and we are back for another week of some buy low, sell high. And guys, let me tell you, I got some more juicy ones again for you this week. But before we jump in, I want to discuss a guy we talked about last week as a sell high, and that is Raheem Mostert. I'm with you. I sold high on him. This week, you are feeling that pain. You are getting mocked by your league mates. How could you give up a guy who just scored 45 points, had 4 touchdowns? And when we sell high on a player, we understand that they're going to have good weeks. Obviously, we're not anticipating what he just did, but we're looking at a window that is bigger than a week or two. Because if you watch that game at the same time, you saw Devon A-Chain now start to cut into his workload, and the Dolphins aren't going to score 70 points a week. They're not going to have 8 running back touchdowns a week. So it's something that you're going to have to live with and understand, hey, if I sell high on the guys that Cameron's talking about this week, they're going to have good weeks in the future, and it might even be this next week. But you want to sell high before they have a whole bunch of bad weeks in a row or a lot of bad weeks mixed in, and the value has gone down tremendously. Anyway, before we get into it, make sure that you hit the notification button. Make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss any fantasy football content that we got coming up every single day, whether it's my videos, Lucas's, Tyler's, or our podcast. We have so much content for you guys, so make sure you hit that notification button. But anyways, let's jump right in. My first buy low candidate is Calvin Ridley. He had a fantastic week 1, 8 catches on 11 targets, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Since then, 5 catches on 15 targets and only 72 yards. And this was something that I said coming into the year. This is something that Lucas and Tyler said as well. We don't know how Ridley's going to look over an entire season. It might take him a little bit to get into game-ready mode. If you've been watching the games, Ridley's missed out on a couple of touchdowns. I think he's 3 where he either missed a catch or just couldn't quite get his feet in. So he's still crazy involved in this offense. It's just taking him a little bit to get back into it, which makes sense. Calvin Ridley has been gone for 2 full years almost. It's going to take you a little bit to get back into game mode, taking the hits, getting your balance down, watching the ball in your hands over a shoulder with a guy draped all over you. That's stuff that takes time. That's stuff that happens in a game that you can't emulate off the field. So we're okay with that. Also, this Jaguars offense has stunk. They have. 9 points against Kansas City, got blown out against Houston this last week. Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback, 17 right now, only has 3 touchdowns in the year and is averaging under 240 pass yards a game. And he also has as many turnovers as touchdowns. So it's just taking this offense a little bit to get going, but I still have faith that the Jaguars offense is going to get back in a rhythm, that this Jaguars offense is going to figure it out. And if they're going to figure it out, Calvin Ridley is the alpha. We've seen that. We've seen the targets coming. 26 targets so far. Tied for 12th in the NFL. He is the alpha. As this Jaguars team figures it out, the touchdowns will continue to come. They'll start following his way. And you are going to wish that you had Calvin Ridley on your team. Our first sell high, is Isiah Pacheco. And I warned you about at the beginning of the year that this might be a committee, and it has been. Pacheco's played 51% of snaps on the season. CEH almost had the same amount of carries, or did have the same amount of carries last game, Now, I do want to say, before we freak out, most of them came when the game was out of hand when Blaine Gabbert was in. But still, he played an entire 11-play drive in the second quarter. CEH is going to be involved just enough to be extremely annoying. You might watch it and go, wow, I think Isiah Pacheco looks that much better. Well, matter of the fact is that they can still use CEH to be effective. So they're going to mix him in because this team looks at things a lot longer than just the regular season. They look towards the playoffs, so they want their guys fresh. Also on top of that, McKinnon is in the receiving role. So if he's got McKinnon taking receiving work and he's got CEH taking drives and stealing a touchdown like he did last game, he's going to be a middling to bottom end running back to this season, which is exactly where we told you he would be. But a lot of people continue to want to think, oh, he looks good. No, it's just not going to be productive for fantasy, right? It's great for the Chiefs. It's something that they need. But from a fantasy perspective, Isiah Pacheco is a floor play every single week with minimum upside, right? We're not going to see multiple touchdown weeks from him just because of the way they use this backfield. We're not going to see 6 catches for 70 yards from him because of the way they use this backfield. It runs through Mahomes and they got 3 backs. You need to sell on Isiah Pacheco. Next, we're buying another wide receiver. Actually, all 3 of our buys this week are wide receivers. This one is in Denver and Jerry Jeudy. We need to remember, Jerry Jeudy is still recovering from a hamstring injury. Usually the hamstring injury that occurred takes 2 to 4 weeks to be fully healthy. So he's probably playing at about 80-85% these last 2 weeks. This team is going to have to find ways to put up points. We saw it last week, 70 points last week to the Dolphins, 35 the week before to the Commanders. This team is going to give up points. This defense was supposed to be great. They don't look great, so they're going to have to figure it out and throw the ball. He is still the best wide receiver on this team. Courtland Sutton fumbled the ball twice in this last game, despite being the better fantasy producer. And we need to remember that last year, he was the wide receiver 6 in weeks 13 to 18. He still saw 7 targets this last week on 75% of snaps, 5 catches, 81 yards. And he was robbed of a touchdown on an illegal motion by Denver's, I think Brandon Johnson was the player who did it. So if he catches that touchdown, all of a sudden it's a completely different narrative around Jerry Jeudy right now. He put up 20 points last week. He's getting back into it. But now we're like, hey, is he going to continue to be this middling wide receiver too? I think that Jerry Jeudy does have high-end wide receiver 2 upside. I don't think he's going to be a top fringe 24 guy. I think that he can compete, find his way into the top 15 this year. Our next sell is Deebo Samuel. And let me say this first. There is only one Deebo Samuel. I get that. I know that. You know that. We all know that. But the real problem is not Deebo himself. Deebo himself is fantastic. The problem is that Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey are on the same field. His splits with them on the field since 2021. So we had those 6 games without McCaffrey, then these last 2 games without Ayuk. He is averaging almost 9 touches a game and 18 fantasy points per game. In games where both of them play, he's averaging barely 7 touches a game and only 13 fantasy points per game. So if you can sell somebody on the promise that Deebo is going to be an 18 to 20 point guy a week, that he has that wide receiver 1 upside again, what we saw back in 2020 or 2021, then yes, that's what you need to do is sell Deebo right now. You need to get your salesman hat on and say, hey, look, he's performing like he was. Don't mention Ayuk. Don't say, oh yeah, it's because Ayuk's out, because that is the reason he is producing at this higher level. He's not used in the run game quite as much. He's not used deeper downfield like Ayuk has been. He's not using the red zone as much. These are all factors that happen when everybody on that team is healthy. And if they're all healthy, then there's just so many mouths to feed. And the only guy that's going to always consistently get his is Christian McCaffrey. Our last buy is a guy that you're not going to have to pay a lot for. And I think that's all right. I think that's exactly what we want. And that's Jahan Dostson. Yes, he has been extremely disappointing from a fantasy aspect or perspective. Me, Tyler DeLucas, we've all are in on Jahan Dostson this year. But what is exciting, he played at least 85% of the snaps. So while he's not getting that production, he is the clear wide receiver 2 in this offense. Curtis Samuel, we saw it last year. He was top 10 in targets last season. He's leading this team in targets right now. It's not something that's always going to be consistent. It's something that happens when you're figuring out a new offense, which is exactly what they're doing. Howell's starting for the first time in his career. Eric Bieniemy is running this offense now. Both those things are meshing at one time. We saw the flash last year. We saw the fact that he out-targeted Terry McLaurin last year. So we know that he has the skill. It's just, can he keep it up over an entire season? I think that he can. And that is why I want to buy back in on Jahan Dostson. I understand that he's out there a lot. We know that he can play really well. And once this offense begins to figure out whether it's Howell or they move to Jacoby Brissett, who, by the way, was a competent enough passer last year to help lead Amari Cooper to a top 10 season, that things are going to start clicking for Jahan Dostson. And right now, there are a lot of people who are just considering dropping Jahan Dostson so you can get him for practically nothing. And I think that he is a great investment to buy into right now. He plays the Eagles this week. Could be another ugly week. Maybe you wait till after this week. But I would go buy in on Jahan Dostson, knowing that better things are yet to come for this guy. And the last person is an older player, and it's Adam Thielen. And this one hurts to say because I have, as a Vikings fan, have been an Adam Thielen fan for a long, long time. But we need to face the facts. Adam Thielen is 33 years old. Andy Dalton threw the ball 58 times. That's not happening again. This Carolina offense is not going to be built around throwing the ball 58 times. Thielen saw 14 targets for only the third time in his career. That's not going to continue to happen. He will remain their wide receiver one, I believe, for the rest of the season. I think that's an okay thing to say. But the difference between him and like a Keenan Allen, who gets a lot of, oh, he's so old. Well, Keenan Allen's 2 years younger. Keenan Allen last year when he came back from injury looked good, was the wide receiver 3. Adam Thielen was not on that same pace. Keenan Allen is connected to Justin Herbert. Adam Thielen is connected to Andy Dalton and Bryce Young, most likely Bryce Young for the rest of the season when he returns. Right? These are the differences between these two where you can't compare them at all. Keenan Allen is in a much different, much better situation than Adam Thielen. And so, yes, well, he put up a great week this week. It's not going to be something consistent when you have a rookie in Bryce Young who's throwing you the ball week in and week out because he's just not going to be able to sustain you in the same way. At the same time, Jonathan Mingo and DJ Chark have both been banged up. Both haven't had consistent reps in this offense. So I think moving forward, that's going to also be something to consider, that there is going to be a little more spreading of the football. And so, yeah, I love Adam Thielen. I think this is for sure his ceiling. I think this is, if you can sell him on a pop week, you can go buy Jahan Dostson for Adam Thielen. That is something that I would really consider doing. Well, guys, I know this was a little bit of a quicker video this week, but I hope that you are ready to make some moves. If you are 0-3, if you're 1-3, if you're 3-0, if you're 2-1, it doesn't matter. You should be looking to make moves in your fantasy league because you can always improve on your roster. So make sure that you're doing that. Podcast comes out tomorrow. Lucas with the must starts for week 4. That is a must-watch episode. He is killing it over there, so make sure you do not miss out. Hit that notification button. Make sure you subscribe, and deuces. We will see you again next week.